This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to What the Health, an independent approach to your health span. Have you noticed how our healthcare system may not have your best interest in mind? Join Dr. Eckel in this fun and sometimes disturbing exploration of the state of healthcare and what it means for you. Now, here's your host, Dr. Eckel.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Greg Eckel, and this is What the Health. Our topic today, the health, wellness, and longevity benefits of Spirulina and Chlorella algae. So we're talking algae, and we are talking algae with Catharine Amston. She's an expert in algae nutrition. She's the chief scientist officer of Energy Bits, and she's a wellness thought leader, an experienced entrepreneur, and sought after speaker. So that's why we've got her on the show. She is an MBA, a BA, and is board certified health coach as well. Catharine, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Dr. Eckel. So happy to be here. And I love talking about algae because it's, as your community will learn, it's a game changer for their health and for the world, actually.
Yeah, algae is such an interesting topic, and I'm excited to get into this because a lot of people don't think about it anymore. And it used to be a bigger thing in the alternative health world, maybe in the 70s. But I'm curious, what is your story? How did you get into this? How did you found your company? Because you came out of corporate America.
I know it's very unusual. Well, first of all, I want to tell people that algae isn't new. It's just new to you. And just like things like chia seed or quinoa or collagen or matcha, you weren't probably familiar with those until a few years ago, but all of these had existed indigenously in other countries for centuries. And so algae is the same thing. It's been used in Asia for 75 years. In Japan, they don't leave their house without taking chlorella algae. And the Japanese, by the way, have some of the best longevity, lowest cancer rates, and great skin and hair. So I just want to preface that by assuring you that this isn't anything new, and it's not a fad. It's just a very powerful nutrient that has never been explained properly here in North America. So, and I knew nothing about it either until I fell down the algae rabbit hole. I was minding my own business with a corporate career, and then my younger sister, 13 years ago, developed breast cancer. Now she's fine, so I want to assure everyone of that. She's 11 years cancer-free, and she lives in Canada. I'm actually Canadian, although I've lived in Boston for 33. But when she was preparing for her chemo, her oncologist advised her that she should change her diet to an alkaline diet because it would help with her healing. Now, they didn't tell her what an alkaline diet was or why it was good for her. So the first thing she did when she got home from that appointment was call me, her big sister who loves her. And I'm a really great researcher. I can find out anything. I said, hey, I know nothing about alkaline diets, but I will find out. And I did. And then I just Googled it, and you can too. It turned out to be mostly a plant-based diet because of the chlorophyll and the phytonutrients that have been proven for decades to build your immune system. So I did some research, gave her some tips on some food, what she should eat, what she shouldn't. She went through chemo completely healed, and happy ending for her because she's still with us, fortunately. We celebrate that every year. But in the process of helping her, I started getting curious about this plant-based nutrition stuff. Now, you have to remember, this was 13 years ago, and it wasn't anywhere. Nobody was talking about it. Like now it's mainstream. Everybody's talking about it. But 13 years ago, they weren't. So after I read about 10 books and about 100 papers from the National Institute of Health, I thought, man, this stuff is powerful. Somebody needs to be sharing this. So I'm just a very passionate individual. I thought, well, I'll give it a try. I have no idea. I have no background. I have no training, but it helped my sister. So it's got to help other people too. So I gave up my corporate career, went back to school, got a certificate in health coaching. And then I taught plant-based nutrition for a year at corporations and hospitals. Basically anybody would let me in. And I gave these workshops for free. And this is where my epiphany happened that led me to algae. And this is, I'm sure everyone listening will connect with this. So as I was teaching people the importance of eating more vegetables, they said, hey, you're not telling me anything my mother hasn't been trying to get me to do since I was a kid, but it's too much work. And that was my epiphany. It's like, how can we get people the nutrients they need if, the vegetables are too heavy to carry from the grocery store? They take up too much room in their fridge. They take too long to clean, to cook, to eat. And let's not even talk about the arguments at the dinner table, trying to get your kids or your husband to eat their vegetables, right? So I thought, okay, I have to find a way to get green nutrition into people in a way that's effortless, because, and also, let's face it, vegetables go bad. I was throwing out most of my arugula because it was going yellow after day 2. So back to the drawing board, I looked at everything I had discovered from my sister, and nothing was looking good. And then I got to algae, and that's when it was like the miracle. That's when I was Alice in Wonderland falling down the rabbit hole. And you're going to learn some of the attributes of algae in a minute. But so let me tell you quickly why I was so enamored with it when I first found it. And here I am 12 years later, and I am still in love with algae, and you will be too as you learn more and you start using it. So first of all, it's the most alkaline food in the world. And that's what got me started on this journey. It's the most nutrient dense food in the world. And that's not my opinion. NASA says algae has 1,000 times more nutrition than any other fruit or vegetable in the world. The United Nations endorses algae because it has 64% protein. It has 3 times the amount of protein as steak, chicken, any kind of other food in the world. And they declared it in 1974 as the answer to world hunger. In 1974, they had a global conference on spirulina algae. So, I mean, that's a pretty big endorsement right there. Algae is also the most scientifically studied food in the world. Can you believe it? There's about 60,000 studies on spirulina and about 40,000 on chlorella. These studies are peer-reviewed. They've been done in universities in America, Canada, Israel, Japan, Germany, all around the world. But here's the problem. Scientists like to talk to other scientists. And so none of this research has made its way out to you, the consumer. And so, it's probably good that I didn't have a science background, because I had to go, I love reading the science, and I go through and I interpret it in a way so I can communicate it to us mere mortals out here in the real world that scientists don't seem to be able to do. So it's science-based, endorsed by international agencies, been used in Asia for 75 years. They take it every single day, and that's where most of it is grown. The only problem with algae, it seemed, was that the quality was poor. Most of it came from China, and nobody knew about it. Nobody knew what it did. Nobody knew what it was. And by the way, it's food. Algae is not a supplement. People, we do sell, and I'll show you.
Differentiate that. So, well, one, I want to back up a little bit, because you're putting out a ton of information here. And one, back to the originating story here that you've started with your sister around, one, you guys hit a very progressive oncologist if they talked about alkalinizing.
No kidding. Well, and also I think it's because it was in Canada, and and her oncologist was a woman, and we've just found that women are a little bit more open to nutrition. But
That's
seriously,
phenomenal.
I mean, that was the luck of the draw. That was a game changer for my sister and obviously for me.
Yeah. And then over 50 years of research, about, you said, 100,000 research papers, 60,000 on one substance, 40,000 on the other. Why is there so much research and that we haven't heard about it out in the general population?
Well, I know. Well, I read a statistic about any kind of scientific discovery takes an average of 17 years after this discovery just to make its way down into the professional community. And then it's about another 17 years before it makes its way out into the public domain. So the kind of research that's been available, it covers everything from helping prevent cancer, helping prevent heart disease, helping prevent COVID, helping to increase energy, improving athletic performance, reducing inflammation, strengthening the gut biome, pulling out toxins, heavy metals. It's endless. I personally have links to about 2,000 of them and be happy to send them to you. And these are studies that have been used. The United Nations used chlorella after not Hiroshima, but the I'm trying to think the one in Russia,
Chernobyl
to pull out toxins in after the Fukushima disaster. Actually, recently, the entire global supply of chlorella was bought up within 24 hours because everybody in Asia knows it's the only thing that pulls out radiation. So we've worked with biological dentists for years. They've used it for decades to pull out mercury when they pull out fillings from people. So there's a very, very, very minute group of people in America, usually homeopaths, naturopaths, that understand some of the healing properties. But in Asia, because it's so common, the knowledge is much more widespread in the consumer community because it's been part of their livelihood and lifestyle for
background, right? They grew up on it. I'm wondering, source matters with this stuff, right? Because it's not just go and buy any type of chlorella or algae off the shelf, because there is contamination.
Yes.
I wonder if you want to speak into that.
Yes. Well, we grow ours in Taiwan. Most of the algae, 99% of it does come from Asia. A lot of the chlorella is from Japan, but the Fukushima disaster made me a little cautious of the radiation in the water. In China, there's very little regulation, so you don't know really what you're getting. They might say it's organic, but is it really? Right. Most of the stuff that comes from China is a low quality, low priced item, so they use high heat to get it to market quickly, which kills the enzymes. High heat changes, anytime you use any kind of heat, you change the nutritional composition. So because I'm hands-on and I'm the founder and CEO and the chief scientific officer, I started the company, I thought, well, I'm not going to China for my algae. So I did the research, found out Taiwan is the most regulated, highest quality algae. So that was number one. And then I found the company that grows it for us, and they've got all the GMP and ISO 9000 certifications. And our algae is grown in triple filtered spring mountain water. We don't use high heat to dry it, so it's still a raw food, and all the enzymes are intact. And we don't put any other binders or fillers, so it's 100% algae. And we sell our algae tablets on our website, energybits.com, but we also sell them nationwide through functional medicine doctors, clinics, chiropractors, nutritionists. We do third-party lab tests. Yeah. Because they need to know 100% that there are no toxins, that the nutrients are exactly what they say they are. So, and these cost us tens of thousands of dollars to do these tests, but we want to prove to people that we are clean and pure and safe.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's so important to know your source is what I teach my children and my patients on that concept of, you want to know where it's coming from and supporting the planet in its health, because it doesn't matter if you're taking the best supplement, if it's toxing out the environment, it's coming back to bite us. So that's really important. And I'm so happy to hear that you guys do the due diligence, because it is buyer beware out there in the supplement market. And so we can talk more on that, although I think you covered it really well. Yeah. What is algae?
What is algae? Well, that's a great segue to my next, presentation, because algae is not a supplement. And I'm going to reinforce that a few times. It's a food crop. And I'm going to show you a picture here. This is an algae farm. You can't show me a supplement farm, but I can show you an algae farm, because algae grows like in fresh water, like kale or broccoli or tomatoes. So number one, it is not a supplement, because supplements are made from extracts, and then they're combined in a manufacturing situation with high heat, which changes the chemical composition of the nutrients. So ours is grown in fresh water, and we don't use any high heat. So this is a food. It is not a supplement. We put a nutritional panel on the back of our packages. Most companies do it incorrectly. They put a supplements panel. The FDA considers algae a food because it's an ingredient in other foods. Supplements are not. And algae has what's called GRAS certification. That's GRAS, which stands for generally recognized as safe. And they only give that to food. So number one, algae is a food. But what I want to tell you is that algae is also a food category. And this is because it's not a fruit and it's not a vegetable. It has vegetable-like attributes, but it is not a vegetable. It was the first life on Earth almost 3.5 billion years ago. So it predates humans by 3.2 billion years, and it's still here. So it's doing something right.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And so algae is everywhere. And there's two main categories of algae. One is talk about microalgae. But the other category is macroalgae, which is also known as seaweed or dulse or kelp. And this is the big stringy stuff that washes up on shore. Now it comes from the sea because it's seaweed, and it has attributes that are good for you. It has a lot of fiber and it has iodine because it comes from the ocean. But it has virtually no nutrition. And we're not really talking about macroalgae, but I wanted you to know what it is. We're talking about microalgae, which is called microalgae because it's microscopic in size. Something like 1 million of these microalgae cells could fit on the head of a pin. Wow. That's how tiny it is. And microalgae is everywhere. Seaweed is only in the ocean. Microalgae is in the rivers, the lakes, the streams, the soil, and the ocean. It's probably also, I know for sure, it'll be in your swimming pool and your aquarium. So it is everywhere. But do not stick your head in your swimming pool or your aquarium to go, to get yourself a bowl of algae, because virtually all of those algae that are growing wild are toxic to humans. So don't do that. Instead, there's a couple, and we're going to talk about them, Spirulina and Chlorella, that even though there's algae everywhere in the ocean, Spirulina and Chlorella are the two that are most common and are the two that are harvested as food crops. Remember, like this, in fresh water. So yes, there's blue-green algae and green algae in the ocean, but it's not spirulina, which is a blue-green algae, and it's not chlorella, which is a green algae. So we're going to talk about spirulina and chlorella, but they are harvested as in fresh water. It's not from the ocean. So if you go online and you see an article about toxic blue-green algae, and don't panic, because they're not talking about spirulina. They're talking about some other strain that's out there. And by the way, poor algae gets the bum rap because algae only shows up in locations, whether it's your favorite beach or not, when there's bacteria, because algae kills bacteria. So algae gets blamed for all the problems and closing your beaches, but it's only there to clean as the cleanup crew. And interestingly, virtually every single water treatment plant in America uses algae at their water treatment plants because of this reason, because it kills bacteria. So all of your water that you're drinking has been filtered by your dear friend, algae.
Well, that's lovely. Yeah, I was going to ask for certain, how it functions in nature. And so it kills bacteria. It's a filtration system. It lives on just bacteria, or does it do other things as well?
Well, it's nutritionally, it's, as I mentioned, it's got the most, it is the fastest growing organism in the world. If in the last 10 or 15 years, there was a lot of research in biofuel. Even Bill Gates invested 200 million into algae research. They thought because it grows so quickly, they were trying to trap the energy that's released as the cells divided as one source of energy. And also it has very high amounts of essential fatty acids. So another group of research was trying to take the omega-3s and the fats that are found in algae and use them as a replacement for diesel fuel. But the bottom line is Elon Musk came up with a better idea, which is to trap the light source from the sun at the source, and then you don't have to transport it. So almost all of that biofuel research that was done over the last 20 years with algae has now transitioned into nutrition research. And that's why you're going to start seeing a lot more about nutritional benefits of algae, because it is so remarkable. And they do different things. And if you want me to, I can start going into the differences between spirulina and chlorella.
I think that would be fun. Yeah, okay. Let's differentiate there and hear, how they behave different and their different benefits, their nutrient makeups, etc.
Yes. So spirulina was the very first life on Earth, and they have fossils to prove it. And it is technically a bacteria. They call it a cyanobacteria because it has no cellulose wall. So the reason why I want to mention that to you is because spirulina has been always known as being very nourishing and energizing. And the reason why it's energizing is because it has the highest concentration of protein in the world. As I mentioned before, that it's been endorsed by the United Nations for that reason. Now, not only does it have high amounts of protein, but all of the protein is already in amino acid form. Now, when you eat animal protein, your body can't absorb it in that state. It has to break it down into what's called amino acids. And sometimes that can take up to 3 days. And very often you end up only absorbing 10% of it as amino acids. So it can be not a very efficient way to get your protein. But with algae, especially spirulina, the protein's already in amino acids. It has 18 of the 20 aminos, including all 9 that your body cannot make. So it's called a complete protein. Anyone who's a vegan knows that very often they have to blend different things like rice and beans to get
for those
protein.
Essential amino acids. So what's a tablespoon of spirulina? What's a grams of protein on that?
Well, in 30 of our tablets, which are about the size of a baby aspirin, here's the tablets.
Oh, yeah.
There's 5 grams. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot of and I'm going to show you too, just so you can see the difference. This is the chlorella. We're going to talk about chlorella in a minute, but we're talking right now about spirulina, which is a blue-green algae. And see the difference in color? This is a darker color because it has 2 pigments in it. It's a blue pigment and a green pigment. Chlorella is just green. But so 5 grams of protein in 30 tablets doesn't sound like a lot until I explain to you, or I recircle back, and when you have 50 grams of chicken, that's about the size of your wrist. That's 50 grams, but you only on average absorb 10% of it after 3 days as amino acids. So 50 grams, 10% of that is 5 grams. Right. So with spirulina, you end up getting the 5 grams, but you get it within minutes. And so it's what's called very bioavailable. It's also very, I call it efficient nutrition. Because if you eat 5 grams, you get 5 grams. So because the high concentration of amino acids, and because spirulina has very high amounts of B vitamins, and B vitamins convert aminos into energy, that's one of the main reasons why it's very energizing. Now, the kind of energy you get isn't like a lightning bolt from the sky, because there's no caffeine, chemicals, or sugar in it. It's just very steady energy. In fact, you may not even notice it at first. You just feel, the best way we describe it is you feel fresh. You just feel alert. The other reasons it gives you energy is not only the high aminos and the B vitamins, it has very high iron, bioavailable iron, and iron is what carries oxygen in your blood. So it helps to oxygenate your brain and your muscles. It's what's called a vasodilator. It releases nitric oxide. And when a vasodilator opens up your blood vessels so that your blood flow can flow faster, which gets more nutrients and oxygen again to your brain and to your muscles. It also has very high amounts of essential fatty acids, including GLA, which help with your brain functioning, reducing inflammation. Boron that supports coordination and thought processes. So when we first started, runners started finding out about us and blogging about us because they loved how they got great energy from it and it didn't upset their stomach. And then triathletes found out about it from that, and then Olympic athletes. So for about the first 4 years, we were actually a sports nutrition company, even though I have no background in sports, because the athletes just loved how, we had ultra runners who were running 100 miles on just spirulina and water and having no hunger, no reduced energy. The focus was great. So it's pretty amazing stuff. And it's very nourishing, and it's ketogenic, which means there's no carbs, 40 vitamins and minerals, no carbs, 1 calorie. So you can stay in your intermittent fasted state in the morning, have 5 or 10 or 15 or however many you want, and get on with your day or get on with your workout and still be, in a fasted state. Take no effort. Again, this is effortless nutrition. Remember, this is why I loved it so much. you don't have to chew these. You can just swallow them if you don't like the flavor. Most people do not like spirulina, I will admit, although chlorella tastes a little bit better. But you get up, you have your coffee or your tea or your water, throw back 5, 10, or 15 tablets. You're good for hours, no hunger, lots of energy, nutrients met, safely, purely, instantly.
Servings of vegetables, do they count for, like, at what level do you hit? Because it is a food, so you're putting on the label serving size, or by how many, servings of vegetables does that count? Because as a naturopathic doc, I'm always telling people, eat your vegetables, and it's like broken record, and nobody likes to hear it. Everybody knows they should, but in general, it's like 4 to 6 cups a day. So always looking for high impact nutritional interventions. So this is great. Yeah.
Okay. So here's one little tablet, right?
Yep.
Here's a visual. One tablet has the same nutrition as an entire plate of vegetables.
Wow.
So while I'm talking to you, I just had a plate of vegetables.
Wow.
That's how effortless it is. You will never need to fight with your kids, your parents, because we know older people don't like to cook. They don't like to look after themselves. They, mushy stuff. And by the way, this is the easiest thing to digest in the world. In Japan, if babies can't digest mother's breast milk, they found this is the only thing, they put this in water. It's the only thing that keeps them alive.
Wow. And
I discovered that, and we'll send this to you. I once saw the chart of the nutrients in mother's breast milk, and I thought, gosh, that looks awfully familiar. I went back and I checked out spirulina, the same aminos in virtually the same proportions. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, spirulina has an essential fatty acid called GLA, which is gamma-linolenic acid. And the only place that has more GLA than spirulina is mother's breast milk. And that's because it's so critical for the baby's brain development, because the baby's brain doubles or triples in size within the first couple of years. But after 2, you can't get mother's breast milk, and adults need brain, healthy fats for their brain as well. So yeah, this is because I was someone who used to eat a lot of vegetables, but it always gave me stomach distress from all the fiber. So this is the easiest thing. Spirulina has 0 fiber because it's a bacteria. It has no cellulose wall. We'll talk about chlorella in a minute. It does have a little bit of fiber, and there's some really important attributes to that fiber. But spirulina is safe for newborns, pregnant moms, pets, children, teens, grandparents. It's the safest, and if we buy it from us, purest food in the world.
It's really cool because you don't think about vegetables as having the essential amino acids. And I see all too often, in a neurodegeneration, brain health, longevity front, as we age, maybe get more affluent or whatnot, we're not cooking as much. And the vegetables, right, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's like, they perish and they go rotten, and, you have to consume them. And so there's a lot of time spent there. So in light of, folks that are traveling or, just aren't cooking that much, having it basically the palm of your hand,
right,
is a really great superfood. It is a superfood.
Yes. And so our spirulina, we call it energy bits. We sell them in large bags on our website, but we also have these little travel pouches with 30 tablets in them. Yeah. People love these because they can toss them in their gym bag, their handbag, their carry-on bag. You're stuck in traffic. You're in between meetings. When you're rushed, you don't want to eat a fast food because you'll have indigestion, and that's even worse, and you probably won't absorb it because you're eating under stress. So these get absorbed instantly and effortlessly. While you're stuck in traffic, just swallow a few and you're good. So and it gives you all the nutrients you need, but it's even better than vegetables. And here's why. The vegetables these days, even if you're eating organic, just are not the same as they were 50 years ago. And it's primarily for 3 reasons. One, our soils are so damaged, they're monocrop to death. So there's no minerals left in the soil, even if you're eating organic. So there's nothing for the poor plant to pull up to feed. You're getting fiber and you're getting calories, but you're not getting nutrition. Number 2, the ozone layer is so damaged that they've realized that there's all the plants have more sugar in them now. Again, not as much protein or nutrients. And then let's face it, a lot of our vegetables are grown far, far away, and they're harvested before they're ripe, and then they get stuck in warehouses, and then they get stuck in the grocery store. And by the time they get to your plate, there's nothing left there. That's why my arugula goes yellow after 2 days, because there wasn't much chlorophyll in the beginning. Chlorella, which we're going to talk about in a minute, has 500 times more chlorophyll than arugula. It has 25 times more chlorophyll than liquid chlorophyll. There is nothing in the world with more chlorophyll than chlorella algae. And there is nothing in the world with more protein than spirulina. And these are two gifts to us from Mother Nature. And that's why I get so passionate about it. It's like having a child prodigy. Would somebody please pay attention here, because it wants to help you. Algae is so beneficial to you, your health, your brain, your kids, and the environment. It is the most sustainable food in the world. I don't know if anybody watched the Netflix movie Seaspiracy. If you didn't, you spell it Seaspiracy. The movie's about how the commercial fishing industry is destroying the oceans. And in the movie, they say twice that the answer to saving the oceans is to eat algae. Because one, the overfishing is because people want the omega-3 that's in the fish oil. But they point out in the movie, as I do, where do you think the fish get the omega-3 from? They get it from algae. So go to the source, save the oceans. Most of your fish oil is rancid anyways. And then
what is the concentration in the products of DHA or EPA or omega-3? Does it have omega-3s in them?
Yes, it does. But I will admit, not high amounts. But then it has GLA, which is technically an omega-6, but and normally I would steer people away from omega-6s, but the real problem with omega-6s is when they are heated, and then they become rancid, and then they become very damaging and inflammatory. But when you have GLA in spirulina, it's not in chlorella, and we don't use high heat, it behaves exactly like an omega-3. So it has the same anti-inflammatory benefits as an omega-3. So I will say the quantities are lower, but here's the dirty little secret that the supplements industry doesn't want you to know. The reason why those numbers on all those vitamins are so high is because vitamins, and even fish oil to a certain degree, are made from extracts, and your body can't really recognize them because they don't exist like that in nature, and they were exposed to heat. And so you absorb on average 10% of whatever is in that vitamin. So that's why your vitamin C and all those numbers are so high, because you're only absorbing about 10% of it. But with food, especially algae, which is so bioavailable, you absorb 99% of it, and you absorb it instantly. So the numbers are lower, but the efficiency is higher.
I'm curious on the 10% absorption. Where are you getting that from? Is there a research study that you've come across?
I can't remember where exactly I saw that particular number. I'll try to trace it.
I would love to see that. Yeah, because that, we really like to keep those references and resources on here. And I just want to make sure, I've got good information for my viewers and listeners.
Yes.
But I do know, yes, absorption is an issue, and digestive tract is different in everybody. And so there is absorbability issues for sure.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that's a correct number. That's all.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's a range, and I just simplify things.
I'm sure, but that's fine. I'm not picking bones.
And that was a good point, because that was so long ago, I can't even remember where I read that, but we have in all of the materials that we'll send you and the presentations that we give, I'm very fastidious about making sure we have scientific references to PubMed and NIH articles.
No, and I appreciate that. And you have given quite a bit of the background research, which is awesome. And this is why I wanted to have you on the show, is really, this is a very simple intervention. It's not like gobs of anything really.
Yeah.
We're talking about algae, and it is a piece that is really missing. I'm curious on the farming. I mean, I know it's in Taiwan. This is going to take us just slightly aside. Then we're going to come back
to chlorella. Because I want to be sure people understand chlorella.
Yes, we're going to get back there. On the growing of it, it's these farms in Taiwan. I'm wondering, I'm here in Oregon, and I know we have like blue-green algae in Southern Oregon, but there's some controversy around the cleanliness
Toxins, yes.
and the toxins. So you said it seems like the Pacific Northwest in the United States would be in an ideal climate to grow this stuff.
No, actually it's not. And so, and there is a study, and I can find it for you, because we often get questions about mycotoxins, and I found it took me 2 years to find a lab that will test for them, and we have ours tested, and of course we have 0 because it's grown in pure triple filtered spring water. But Klamath Lake was a source of algae for a long time, a company called E3 Live. And there was a study that tested their algae and detected mycotoxins because the mycotoxins were in the lake. This is the problem with taking using a source that's live or wild. Algae is probably the only thing, wild mushrooms are better than harvested or wild anything, but not with algae because it will absorb whatever's in the water. And so they found there were mycotoxins in the Klamath Lake. The best algae is grown in subtropical environments. So that's why it's Taiwan. There is a little bit in Hawaii, but and there's new techniques where they are growing it in glass tubes that are lit with LED lights. It's called, the process is called fermentation. It doesn't offer all the same natural benefits you get from sunlight, but in the future, because algae will be the food of the future, algae is going to be used, it's already being used as clothing materials and packaging materials. I mean, it's a huge movement going on all around the world, but like I said, most of the science hasn't trickled out to the public. But as things really take off for algae, you'll need to be able to grow it in places beyond just the subtropical, because when you grow it indoors with these LED lights in the glass tubes, like you could grow it underground. You could grow it in any season, anywhere, and they are already. But and eventually I might get on that train. But I'm a purist right now, as long as I can. Like to grow it with Mother Nature's sunshine.
And I think there is something obviously to be said about the natural product. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and the closer to mimicking nature and utilizing the sun to then we're eating the sun rays. I mean, that's potent energy right there. Like,
exactly.
You're not going to get in a tube with an LED light.
Well, my hope is, when we get bigger, that I can grow it here in America. And I've already identified probably northern Florida would be a comparable temperature and climate to Taiwan. And I've already talked to the companies that grow it for us in Taiwan about partnering with us. But it could likely take 10 years and a very big amount of money, but that's my plan. And just on that note, again, reconfirming that algae is food, in 2019, the White House passed the very first Algae Agricultural Act as part of the US as the 2019 Farm Bill, because they want to encourage farmers to grow it here in America, because as I said, 99% of it is in Asia, but even they have recognized that it's the most nutrient dense food in the world, and it's the most sustainable crop in the world. Algae takes about a month to grow, 2 weeks to dry, so it's about a 6-week window. But if you grow corn or wheat, you get 1 crop a year, right? You could get 10 crops of algae a year if you manage it properly. So it's a reconfirmation that it's a crop because it's got its own agricultural act defending it. And even the White House, somehow the knowledge has trickled up to them about the importance of this. And again, I just say algae isn't new, but you didn't grow up with it. None of us grew up with it here in North America. So we're just so unfamiliar with it. And very often we like to condemn something or, pretend it can't possibly be as good as it is, because if it is, why don't we know about it? Well, it's because it takes a lot of work to educate people. I've been doing this for 12 years. Right. So let's get you back on the chlorella track here. Okay.
We want to hear, because we covered spirulina.
Yes.
Now let's go to the green, the total green.
Yes. So just a summary about spirulina.
Oh, yeah.
Energizing, nourishing, replaces other vitamins, fish oil, snacks, ketogenic, and it's a blue-green algae. And now we're going to talk about chlorella, which is a green algae. So chlorella showed up about 1 billion years after spirulina. And as I mentioned, it's a green algae, and it does belong to the plant kingdom, but it's, again, not technically a plant. And the reason I want to point that out is there are folks like Dr. Gundry, Stephen Gundry, who has a book called The Plant Paradox, and I was on his podcast. Sometimes plants have nutrients that are what's called anti-nutrients, like lectins or oxalates, which can cause some gastric distress or puncture your stomach lining and and cause autoimmune. Well, algae, because it's not technically a plant, doesn't have any of those. And just to do a little sidetrack, the reason why plants have lectins and oxalates is because they started on the land. And so they had to develop something to protect themselves from bugs or predators. So they somehow evolved to create these lectins, which are, they taste terrible to the animals and to the bugs. So it helps, it does the desired effect, keeps them away. But algae started in the water. So it never had to develop lectins or oxalates to protect itself. So it doesn't have any. So even he endorses algae as a great addition to any diet, and that it's keto, it's vegan, it's low carb, low calorie, low fiber. So I want to mention that because even though chlorella does belong to the plant kingdom, it doesn't have any of the bad aspects of or potential damaging aspects of plants. And contrary to spirulina, which has no cellulose wall and is a bacteria, chlorella has the hardest cellulose wall in the plant kingdom. It's like having kids, if one child does this, the other one has to do it completely opposite, right? That's
totally different. Right.
Sort of like spirulina and chlorella. They're, like the feuding algae. So, well, they're not feuding, they're just different. So chlorella, that hard cell wall, here's what's so cool about it. It attaches to toxins, lead, mercury, radiation, aluminum. It also identifies lactic acid as a toxin, alcohol, and pulls them out of your body. It chelates them. And I like to recommend chlorella to people for detoxing. In fact, you should really be doing it every day because we're so surrounded by toxins. But you don't have to if you don't want to. But I prefer it over something like activated charcoal, which a lot of people use, but the problem with that is it pulls out all minerals, even the good ones, and you can get into a situation where you could be losing all your electrolytes and cause some dehydration situation. But chlorella has 40 vitamins and minerals. So it only pulls out the toxins. It contributes minerals to your body. It doesn't pull them out. Just the bad stuff, leaves all the good stuff. So that's number one about the hard cell wall. And the other thing about that cell wall is because it has cellulose, it does have fiber, a small amount of fiber, just enough to feed your gut biome, which will generate those short chain fatty acids to help with your gut health. And so that's very important. The other cool thing about chlorella is that, remember I said spirulina has the highest protein in the world? Yes. Chlorella has the highest chlorophyll in the world. That's why it's called chlorella, because of the chlorophyll. And you say to yourself, so what's important about chlorophyll? Well, right. There's a lot. I'll give you two very big ones. Number one, the chemical composition of chlorophyll is virtually identical to the chemical composition of your hemoglobin, your red blood cells. The only difference is that chlorophyll has magnesium in the middle and your blood has iron, and that's what carries oxygen. So chlorophyll builds your blood. It's been used for centuries for healing purposes. Remember, it's in anything green. And when your dog is sick, it instinctively knows to go and eat grass. They used chlorophyll even as recently as World War II for healing purposes. If they ran out of blood transfusion, they would give the injured liquid chlorophyll because apparently they would heal just as fast as if they'd had a blood transfusion. And when you have healthy blood, as you know, you're going to have a healthier body. Your blood is your freeway, your highway of delivering nutrients and oxygen to your brain, your organs, your cells. So you want to be sure that your blood is healthy. So when you have chlorophyll, it's helping to build your blood. That's number one. Number two is and while I'm on the blood theme, I might as well stick with it for a while. Remember, I started down this path because my sister's doctor recommended she have an alkaline diet. Chlorophyll is very alkaline. So your blood needs to be at a pH level of 7.34, which is right in the middle of between 0 and 14 of the alkaline and acidity and alkaline. Yeah. So when you eat acidic foods or you exercise a lot, or actually even emotions, if they're too stressful, your blood, you release or are exposed to acidic nutrients, I guess, if you want to call them nutrients. And if your body wasn't so intelligent, you would die if your blood pH got too acidic. So your body's so intelligent, it goes, oops, that's too much acidity. We got to get rid of that. So it pulls the minerals that are stored in your body, in your bones primarily, but also in your cells and other organs. And it automatically diffuses the acidity and brings it back to a pH. But if you, that's 7.34. But if you do that too often, it can lead to osteoporosis, because you're it's like taking out too much money out of your bank account. It's like, wait a second, this has got to stop. Or it puts stress on your immune system and your organs. And that's why my sister's doctor didn't want that to happen. So if you have a diet that keeps that pH of your blood in the area that it should be, then it's a lot easier on your entire body. So that's a very beneficial aspect of chlorophyll. Another cool thing about chlorophyll, this gets back to the fact that all of your health issues start at the cellular level, both the good ones and the bad ones. And so, I'm just going to show you one more thing. So to keep your cells healthy and the mitochondria inside the cells, the first step is to be sure your cell walls are healthy. And the way to do that is to be sure they're permeable. And essential fatty acids are a really great way to make sure your cell walls are permeable. But any healthy fat will help make that happen. So because chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment, it helps heal the cell walls. And I found out that chlorophyll was a fat-based pigment by doing my own little experiments. I used to do put some tablets of spirulina in water, and you would see the beautiful blue color. That's the phycocyanin, which is the blue pigment, disperse evenly through the water. And then I did it with its brother, chlorella. The green pigment, which was chlorophyll, would just clump and it wouldn't disperse like they want up here. Finally, I had my epiphany, which has been confirmed by science, that chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment. And of course, fat and water don't mix. And that's why it clumps. But that's also why it heals the cell walls in the cellular level. So the best analogy I give to people is, when you have dirty windows, you can't see out, and sunlight can't get in. And if your dirty windows are in your car, that's an accident waiting to happen. So just think of chlorophyll as window washers for your cell walls. Make sure everything's clean so that the nutrients can get in and the toxins can get out. And when that's happening effectively, your cell wall, your cells can maintain their proper pH. They can keep the oxygen in there. The free radicals are reduced, so the mitochondria don't get as damaged, and so everything just functions better. That's so I'm really thrilled that chlorophyll can help with your health at that cellular level, because that's where everything starts, both the good news and the bad news. So because chlorella has the hard cell wall that pulls toxins out, the highest chlorophyll in the world, which is very cleansing and healing to the cell walls, which also heals your gut and your colon, we call our chlorella recovery bits, because it helps you recover your health. Or if you had some alcohol, it pulls that out, so you help recover from drinking. Or if you were working out, it will pull out the lactic acid, so you will recover from your sports. It has a lot of other attributes, like it has the highest concentration of RNA and DNA in the world. It has more than sardines. And as you age, that's an issue, because you want to make sure your RNA and DNA can replicate in a healthy way. It has the highest tryptophan in the world. A lot of people think turkey has the most tryptophan, but it has 5 times the amount of tryptophan. And tryptophan is a precursor to melatonin and serotonin. Melatonin helps with your sleep, and serotonin is your happy transmitter. I eat so much chlorella. Maybe that's why I'm always happy. I don't know.
Could be it. That could be.
But it's so it's very much and it has the highest concentration of not the highest, but a very high amount of K2, which moves excess calcium out of your blood vessels, your skin, your organs, and into your bones. And they've been finding that a lot of heart disease, arteriosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries. I tell people, well, guess what's hardening? It's the calcium. We're all taking D3 and excess calcium, and we think it's going to our bones, but guess what? It's going to everywhere but your bones. You need K2 to usher it into your bones, and there's virtually no K2 in our food supply any longer, other than in grass-fed animal protein or algae. Yeah. So because it has all these wonderful healing, detoxing benefits, we generally recommend, you can take it any time of day, and I eat it all day long, to take it before bed, because it will remove toxins from the day. If you've had any alcohol, get rid of that out of your system. And when you sleep, your body goes through a detox and repair cycle. And so if you have chlorella in your system, it will facilitate that detox and repair even better. So, you're getting your beauty sleep, and you've got the cleanup crew in there, getting rid of toxins, cleaning up your brain, getting rid of aluminum, restoring your RNA and DNA. It also stimulates peristalsis, which is also known as bowel movements. And we know that elimination is a big part of health.
Does it do that on the fiber content from the?
No, it's the chlorophyll. It's a combination of the chlorophyll, but it's not just the chlorophyll. One of the things I want to do is, when we get bigger, is conduct some of our own research and sure, get to some of these nitty gritty things that I haven't yet found in the science papers that I've been reading. Sure. Like why exactly does it stimulate peristalsis? I don't really know, yeah, but it's been very healing for the colon and for the gut. That's why they use it for Crohn's disease and IBS. I think it's just this tiny amount of fiber that is good for the bacteria. The chlorophyll is very cleansing, and there's 40 other vitamins and minerals. So it's very, very healing.
So that component on taking it, I saw you kind of chew up the capsule or pill, the tablet. Yeah. Can you swallow them whole, have the same effect, or is it best to masticate, like chew them, or?
The only reason, I enjoy the flavor. It's very green. Sure. It tastes, the chlorella tastes like a soy nut or a sunflower seed. And I eat them normally with macadamia nuts or pistachios or almonds. It's delicious. And if you can learn to eat it, it's much more enjoyable. Sure. The only reason why, but if you don't like the flavor, you can certainly swallow them. Yeah. It will start absorbing a little faster with if you chew them. But spirulina gets into your system so quickly, within 10 minutes, even if you swallow it, that's why it never causes stomach distress. I will point out, however, that the chlorella, because it has a hard cell wall, takes about an hour and a half to fully get absorbed. That's why if you take it after drinking, you'll be sober in an hour and a half on average, but it takes that long. Spirulina is like literally seconds if you chew it, and 10 minutes when you swallow it.
One of the things I wanted to make sure we covered today is just because they are so nutrient dense, they're so great for the immune system. And you had put together some information around, can algae help with COVID? Yeah. Well, a couple of things, and I'll address each algae because they do different things regarding the COVID situation. So that phycocyanin, that blue pigment that I talked about, it has some amazing healing properties. Normally, spirulina is used for nourishing and satisfying your hunger and giving you energy, but there's some attributes that are in there that are also very healing. I'll give you two. One is that phycocyanin, that blue pigment, has been found to have what's called anti-angiogenesis properties. That's a mouthful, I know, of jargon. So let me break it down for you. Angiogenesis is when the blood vessels are rerouted to tumors or cancers to feed them. Anti-angiogenesis is anything that prevents that process. So phycocyanin, for whatever reason, has that attribute. We didn't even know, but there's an organization called the Angiogenesis Society. It's angiogenesis.org. And they're actually based here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just across the river from me. Yeah. And about 5 years ago, they were having their global summit
By the way, they're funded by Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and all the Bills. So very, very well respected organization. They called us up and said, did you know that your algae prevents the growth of tumors? Would you come and, we'll give you a free spot at our conference. So
that's
sure. So that's really cool. That's one of the things. But related to COVID, there was some research done, and it's on our website, and you can see the scientific references, because again, I'm very careful when I talk about COVID.
Yep.
COVID, as you know, is really a respiratory lung disease, although the next generation is not so much lung, but it enters your body through what's called the ACE2 receptor cells. And these are predominantly in your nose, your throat, and your lungs. Well, the research found that phycocyanin, that blue pigment, for whatever reason, intercepts the COVID virus. It sits on top of the ACE2 receptor cell and prevents the virus from getting in. And as further proof of this, the University of Pittsburgh Pharmacology Department has developed a vaccine nose spray based on algae, and it's I think based on these very principles, that it sits on top and prevents it. Similar how to zinc when you're getting a cold can also help shorten or prevent the virus from getting in. So it's those. So I tell people, if you could just learn how your body functions better, and then you start to see what algae has to offer your body, it's like a marriage made in heaven. It's
phenomenal. I mean, we just spoke for 55 minutes, and this has gone by quickly, and I have so many more questions. But here at the end, Catherine, and this is energybits.com, everybody.
Yes.
Do you have any last parting words? We've in the final minute here, and then I'm going to give some other information for folks. Yeah.
Well, I everyone's, it's the start of the year and you're bombarded with, I got to change this and I got to change that. And my recommendation is take things slowly, take them easy. And adding algae to your routine is the simplest thing that you can ever do. It's effortless. If you can swallow water, you can get the nutrients your body needs, your brain, your stomach, to your children. Effortless. Just swallow. Even if you just took 2 a day, 3 a day, 5, 10, doesn't really matter. So make it easy on yourself. It's the best value food you'll ever get, because there's so much nutrition in each one of these. And we have a 20% discount code. The code is What the Health. It's all one word, uppercase, lowercase, no spaces between them. What the Health. Come to energybits.com. I promise you, it will change your entire nutritional outlook on life. We've got people that improve their mental outlook, their physical outlook. It's just amazing. And it's from Mother Nature, unprocessed, real food.
I love the greens and the blues. Let's get on that train, folks. Again, this is What the Health. Thank you, Catherine, and energybits.com.
Yes.
What the Health is the code to get 20% off if you're interested. I'm excited to incorporate these in for a bit and see how I start.
A bit. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that was awesome. We are here on the Contact Talk Radio Tuesdays from 2 to 3 Pacific. If you like today's show, please share us with your friends and family. This is how we get the word out. It's why I developed the program. Also, if you like the show, give us a 5-star rating and tell the listeners and viewers what you learned, because it makes a difference. We're all in it together. See you next week.